Hello and welcome. I'm Melinda Kinlami. Tonight, federal government obtains court order to proscribe the Islamic movement in Nigeria, otherwise known as Shiites, as a terrorist group following recent violent and deadly protests by the group in the nation's capital, Abuja. IMN kicks against court order allowing its proscription, insisting its members are victims of brutality and not terrorists, as human rights lawyer Falana describes the order as illegal. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo and President of Rwanda Paul Kagame explained their government's plans in driving growth at the Tony Elumelu Foundation Forum in Abuja. And 8 senior military officers to be charged in Sudan with crimes against humanity over alleged role in the killings of protesters on June the 3rd.
Business News Tonight, President of the AFDB and President of the Democratic Republic of Congo lead the campaign for stronger economic ties among Africans.
And on Sports News Tonight, Lagos International Badminton Classics ends after 5 days of fun and excitement at the Molade Okoya Hall, the Taslim Balogun Stadium.
A new twist emerged today over the long-drawn battle between the federal government and members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, popularly known as Shiites, as the federal government obtained a court order proscribing the group and declaring them terrorists. A lawyer in the chamber of the Attorney General of the Federation confirmed that the Solicitor General, Mr. Dayo Akpata, obtained the ex parte order on behalf of the federal government on Friday. A vacation judge in the Federal High Court in Abuja, Justice Nkeoye Maha, who reportedly granted the order, also designated the activities of the Shiites in any part of the country as acts of terrorism and illegality. The court also restrains any person or group of persons from participating in any form of activities involving or concerning the group under any name or any platform. To complete the process, the court asked the Attorney General of the Federation to publish the order proscribing the respondent in the official gazette and 2 national dailies. But the Shiite spokesperson disagrees with that court order, insisting that the IMN cannot be described as a terrorist organization, as it has lost many of its members to attack by security operatives, but has not for once avenged their deaths. Mr. Ibrahim Musa maintains that the IMN and its members are the victims.
As regards the court order proscribing the Islamic movement in Nigeria, for now, the movement hasn't reached a decision. The leading members and lawyers are studying the court order, and very soon they will issue a way out for the movement. But we believe we are the victims of all that has been happening. So it is very unfortunate that a group that has not retaliated all the killings that it has suffered under the present Muhammadu Buhari administration, it will now be accused of being a terrorist group. Have you ever seen a terrorist group that 1,000 of its members have been killed and they haven't killed anybody? So it is absurd, we believe, for the federal government to take this step of proscribing the Islamic movement. We hope the international community will put more pressure on the government. Our major demand is for them to release our leader to go and look after his health. If they do this, all our agitations, especially in the streets of Abuja, will melt down. That's all that I can say for now.
And for the lawyer to the leader of the group, Mr. Falana, the order is immoral and illegal. Mr. Falana believes that the action is opportunistic on the part of the Sunnis occupying public offices to use the state to liquidate the Shiites. The senior lawyer noted that the IMN was proscribed by the Kaduna state government in 2016, just like the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, was proscribed in 2017, yet the groups have continued to operate in defiance of the orders. He maintains that the justices of the Court of Appeal unanimously held that the rights of Nigerians to protest against the policies of government is part of the freedom of expression guaranteed by the Constitution. He therefore asked the government to withdraw the proscription order, insisting that it will not stand as the fundamental right of the Shiites to freedom of religion, as freedom of religion is constitutionally guaranteed. That proscription order may just be considered as an action that will perhaps settle the face-off between security operatives and the Shiites. While the federal government appears to be handling the matter differently, IMN considers the action as a grave injustice. Our next report takes us down memory lane on how it all started long before the proscription order was sought.
The Islamic movement in Nigeria may have gained prominence in 2015 after a clash with the convoy of the Chief of Army Staff. But in the actual sense, the group has been active since the 1990s, when its leader Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky began a vigorous campaign introducing the Shia doctrine of Islam to Nigerian Muslims and recruiting faithful as practiced in Iran. Some years later, this video surfaced in the social media, showing the group holding sessions of its own and parades which appeared military-like. But they were never known or seen to carry arms and ammunition in their operational base in Zaria, Kaduna State. This clash with the army during one of their processions seems to be their albatross. The aftermath changed the narrative as the army reportedly descended on their base, burnt their houses, allegedly killed over 300 worshippers, including 3 sons of their leader, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, who himself was taken into custody. The allegations have not been denied by military and government authorities.
I want to convey to you, members of the press, that the Shiite leader, El-Zakzaky, is safe and in protective custody.
The Shiites have their ways, which may not be totally acceptable to everyone, but they believe they have a genuine cause to demand the release of their leader, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, and his wife, who have been in detention since 2015 despite a court order granting their release. Year after year, what started as a peaceful protest transformed into civil unrest, particularly in the nation's capital, Abuja. The group gained more strength, remained resolute and unified in their huge number. Their peaceful protests were soon met with stiff resistance from the police. And it even got worrisome after they attempted a forceful entry into the National Assembly. That bloody altercation, which left 4 policemen injured, and the ones that followed, marked the beginning of a new storyline in the series of clashes between the police and the Shiites. A more terrifying episode between the group and the police was recorded on Monday, July the 22nd. A deputy commissioner of police and a youth service corps member with Channels Television died during the incident. Then it became even more fearsome, with everyone asking government to do the needful, either by obeying a court order granting the release of Sheikh El-Zakzaky or going into a dialogue with the now restive group, who are insisting on continuing with the protests in disobedience of a restriction order.
Where an individual interest conflicts the public interest naturally prevails.
But the die seems cast. The government has made a pronouncement by securing a court injunction proscribing the Shiites. Whether this order for proscription will finally end the face-off between the IMN members and the government may be determined in coming days.
To give some insight into what this order means and what lies ahead regarding this matter, we're now being joined live from our Abuja studios by former State Director with the Department of State Security, Mr. Mike Ejiofor. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Does this latest move by the government to proscribe the Islamic movement in Nigeria come to you as a surprise?
Well, I think I'm really surprised with this latest move because if you recall that this was how IPOP started and the government proscribed it due to the same handling of Boko Haram. We are where we are now for over 10 years. And I believe that this latest move might not fully resolve the crisis at hand. Rather, it will escalate it. But you know, in governance, we don't have the information they have in government. But thinking critically as a Nigerian, I believe that this issue of proscription of the Islamic movement, I think we should be able to draw a distinction between the Islamic movement of Nigeria, which is restricted to Nigeria, and Shiite movement, which is a sect and an ideological movement all over the world. So how do you separate the Islamic movement members in Nigeria and the Shiites? And you have Shiite members not necessarily belonging to Islamic movement, and we have the Islamic movement members of Nigeria who are also Shiite members. So the implementation of this order of proscription are describing the group as a terrorist group becomes a very big problem because they have a lot of these Shiite members in government, and those of them too who are law-abiding. So how do we separate the members of Islamic movement and the general members of the Shiites, which is worldwide? I think this is going to bring international criticism and condemnation on Nigeria. So I think the government has to look at this issue again. And like I said some time ago, we need a political solution to this problem rather than use of force.
This is not, Mr. Ejiofor, if I may, this is not the first time the government would take such decision. The Kaduna State and the federal government once announced the proscription of the group in the past, but it appears it was not enforced. So do you think it will be different this time around?
Well, I wouldn't see any difference because these people are determined, like they earlier threatened, that they are ready to sacrifice 21 million of their members. I don't know whether that figure is correct or not, but I still believe that the proscription might not solve the problem. But I also want to appeal to the members of the Islamic movement of Nigeria to remain law-abiding, because if they continue their protest, destroying public property is not going to help their case. Rather, they lose sympathy of the people. But I also believe that they have other avenues of challenging this proscription order in court to get it vacated if they have a good case.
But how much security threat do you think this group actually poses to the Nigerian state, which informs the government's decision to resolve to keep their leader, Sheikh El-Zakzaky, away?
You see, it's going to, like I said, it's going to escalate the problem. It's going to put our security agencies, the actors, under intense pressure. And don't also forget that this is not the only crisis we are facing at hand now. We have the issue of the killer herdsmen. We have the issue of the separatist agitation. You have so many crises. We are still contending with Boko Haram. So I think what we should do at this time is to look at ways of reducing our problem instead of escalating it. I feel very concerned because most of the problems we have in Nigeria, we are facing in Nigeria, are either political, religious, or ethnic. And this is a religious problem. You know, Nigeria is a secular state. If you sow seed of discord between the Sunnis and and the Shiites, is going to create more problems for us. So I think government should look at it. Order has been made, and it can be revisited.
Mr. Mike Ejiofor, many thanks for sharing your thoughts with us on the News at 10. In part two, after the break, Nigerian mission in South Africa petitions the country's police authorities on the attack against a Nigerian, Mr. Tayo Faniro, by 2 South African policemen. Stay with us.